right, fourth grade friends, are you ready for an exciting lesson today? I know I am. So if you printed out this foil figure sculpture instructions, you're going to need this to start off our project, and you're going to need to ask your mom if you can borrow a piece of her foil. So I have my Reynolds wrap here, and you're going to say, well, how much, Mrs. Herbay? Well, maybe if you ask your mom to help you, it's going to be a little longer than a piece that you would cover like a casserole dish with. So I'm gonna kind of roll it out here, and I think that's about big enough. I'm gonna rip it off. And we need the foil to be 16 inches long. And what we can do is we can, in order to figure that out really super easily, you can just take a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper, turn it vertically, and then all you're gonna do is just line it up with the edge of your foil. So that's 8.5, and then here's another 8.5, and that's the end. So 8.5 plus 8.5, come on guys, you know it. It is 17, so we need it to be around 16 or 17. So if I put my mark here, that's probably good enough. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently fold up the edges of my foil so that I'm just going to fold it like that, so that when I go to cut the foil, I will have a nice straight line to cut. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but at least it gives you an idea. So I'm going to cut along that line. Voila! Now I have my big piece of foil. Now I'm going to need to turn my foil the vertical way, because that's how we're going to be putting these marks here onto our foil. So we want to look, the very first thing we want to do though is these two torso lines. Those are kind of in the middle of the piece of foil. And so in order to do that, I'm going to just take the bottom corners and I'm going to gently fold up to meet the top corners. But I'm not going to fold it completely in half. I'm just kind of going to give it a little bit of a squeeze right there. So now I kind of have some marks here. And you can take a marker or Sharpie, even a pen will work. So we're going to come in about that far there. And then I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to come in about that far there. So there's my torso lines. Then if I go now down to the bottom, I'm going to put a line that is halfway in between. So you can just kind of eyeball it. And I'm going to kind of figure out, okay, that's about halfway. And then I'm going to draw a line. So I'm drawing this line right here. So I'm not going to draw it all the way up. And I'm going to leave some space. I'm going to draw that there. And then my last 3 lines are going to be the two, well, there's 2 lines, and I'm dividing this into 3 parts. So again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball and kind of see if that's about right. If not, I can kind of adjust. And then I'm just going to sketch down a little bit. And then I'm going to sketch down a little bit. All right. And there I have my foil, and it's all marked and ready to go. So then the last step I'm going to do for this part is I'm just going to carefully take my scissors and cut there. I'm going to cut here, turning it around. I'm going to cut here. Here and here. So this is the top. So I should have 3 sections at the top, 2 lines in the middle with some space in between, and then I should have 2 sections at the bottom. All right, and now we're going to get started folding our foil figure. Hi guys. I switched the camera because I think it's going to be a little bit easier to show you some of these steps facing you. So step number 1 shows us that we're going to start to squeeze the foil in the middle, a little bit into a head. We're going to start to squeeze a little bit of the arm and the 2 legs at the bottom. So I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like for me. So this is the top of my foil, and so this is the middle part, this is the head. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of gently squishing it down to form a little bit of a head. It's all right if it rips a little bit, because we're gonna kind of figure, we're gonna kind of be squishing it all together eventually. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of start to form this arm here. I'm gonna start to put that arm together there. It almost looks like a bat or one of those flying squirrels. And then down here, then I'm going to start to take this. And when you're handling the foil, you just want to be, you don't have to be too rough with it. You just kind of want to be a little bit gentle with it. And so now I kind of have like this blob person, right, where I have, but you can kind of start to see a person coming, all right? Then the next step that we are going to take a look at, somebody's going to get our reading glasses on because I can't see without them. So that's kind of like step 1 where our figure looks like a flying squirrel. And then step 2, we are going to start to bring the foil together a little bit closer, all right? So what we're going to do here is, so here's where I'm going to start to bring this middle section in. I'm going to kind of try to squeeze that a little bit so that now, oh yeah, it's starting to look. And the head may be a little bit too long and tall. And again, this is not going to be like an exact person. It's going to be sort of like in the style of Alberto Giacometti, his sculptures. It's going to be a little bit thin. Now, if you don't squeeze your foil quite as tightly, you may be able to have your foil be a little thicker. So see how I'm just kind of like squeezing like that, and I'm squeezing like that. So now I'll step back a little bit. So now I'm starting to get more of a person. And we can kind of look at the body proportion, and we might be able to say like, oh, it looks like his torso, like his body is really, really long, and his legs are a little bit shorter. So you can kind of maybe like squeeze it down a little bit to shorten that. Or, oh, maybe the arms are a little bit too long, so you could kind of squeeze those together. So this is kind of the time when we're just kind of starting to figure out how it looks. And here's the situation. Worst case scenario, you start this and you get started and it's a disaster. I'm sure your parents would be willing to give you another piece of foil to try. So don't worry. And the other thing is too, is that this foil is very kind of forgiving. So you can kind of, if you squeeze it little by little, then I think you'll have an easier time. You don't want to just all of a sudden squeeze it real tight, because then what will happen is you can't really unsqueeze it. But if you kind of leave it loose as you go along, you will be able to squeeze it tighter and tighter. So that is step 2 that I was showing you. And then step 3, you're going to start to think about a pose that you want to put your figure in. And what you can do is I have a worksheet that I have attached to your lessons, and these are called gestures. And sometimes when people learn how to draw the figure, they do it really simply like this. So you could look at these as an idea for poses for your sculpture, but you don't have to. This could just be as inspiration. You may not even need this. You may have your own idea of the position that you want to put your figure into. So now I've kind of like, my guy looks pretty good, or girl. And so what I want to do now is maybe if I want to differentiate from the hands, I can squeeze in a little tighter, like where that wrist would be. So I'll kind of show you guys. So there's kind of like a hand. If I want the arm to be a little bit thinner here, but thicker there, I'm kind of fine tuning for more of a neck. And it looks like, see how the end of this is like really, really fat? It almost looks like this person has on a boxing glove. So I'm gonna squeeze it a little bit tighter so it's more like a hand. And I'm gonna squeeze the wrist in a little bit so it's a little bit more like that. The body's pretty good. And then as I do the legs, same thing. As I come down, if I want to kind of form a foot, then now's where I'm going to bend the foil and kind of poke it out like a foot. So I'm going to do that on the other side too. Poke out my foot. And then I'm going to think about what kind of a pose do I want? Maybe my person is pitching a baseball. So he's going to have, I'm trying to think if Mrs. Herbay has to think about this for a second. If the ball is in this hand, he's going to reach back, right? And maybe he's even bending over a little bit. This hand is down. This leg is back. Oh, also I want to mention, if you're trying to kind of split the legs apart and they're not kind of splitting, what I did was I just kind of like stuck my finger there a little bit and pulled it apart, and I was able to get the legs to separate more. So if you want more of a pose where the leg is really, really back like this, so I'll kind of show you. So here is my guy who's ready to throw a baseball, or sort of. You guys who are baseball players could tell me this. Maybe you're a dancer and you want to do a dancer pose. Maybe you don't really want to do too crazy of a pose and you just want it, you get the foil figure kind of made and you just want them to be standing still. It is totally up to you. So once you have it like this, then I'm going to switch my camera view and I'm going to show you what the last step will be. Okay? All right, for the final step, the other thing that we're gonna try to see if you can find around your house is like a cracker box or a cereal box. This was the box of Nella wafers that my kids had finished off the other day. So I just kind of took it apart, and what you can do is you can just cut a rectangle from this. So I'm gonna cut off the little flap here. And I'm going to cut along this line here. I'm going to cut along this line. And then I'm just going to even this up. I'll clean this up just a little bit because I was ripped. Right. Then what you'll do with your scraps is you will take them and put them in your recyclable bin or your trash, wherever your parents like you to put them. And now you have a cardboard rectangle. So the next thing if we were at school, what we would be doing is we would be taking this figure, turning it up, and we would be hot gluing it to the cardboard. But you guys may have hot glue, but you may need parents' help for that. So there is an easy solution. I'm going to turn my camera around and I'm going to show you a little way we can go around that. All right, guys, so I've got my cardboard and I've got my guy, and he's getting ready to throw a baseball. He might even just want to be on one foot. So if your parents do have a glue gun and you are permitted to use it and you're not bothering them, what you can do is have them put a little dot of glue, and then you're going to hold your figure in place until it sticks. But a lot of you will not have that option. So here are some workarounds. Tape. You can, if you have either masking tape or Scotch tape, you can use tape to kind of tape your figure down. So I'm going to get a piece of Scotch tape ready. You want it to be fairly long so that it can go around the base of the foot. So I'm just going to kind of put the tape there, and then I'm going to secure it to the cardboard like that, and it actually stays. And if you were concerned about it staying, even kind of staying in there a little bit more, you could put another piece. But if you really kind of smooth it and squeeze it, it should stay. It should stay there. I'm just going to, just for good measure, I'm going to put sort of a piece on this side, and then I'm going to turn it around here, and I'm going to put a piece on the other side. All right, now we are ready to have some fun with shadow. All right, so now it's time to have a little bit of fun with creating a shadow for our figure. So what you can do is, there's a couple of things. You could turn on a light in a room that's kind of dark, and you can position the light so that it's behind the figure and it casts the shadow onto the cardboard. Or an easier thing you can do is, if you have a cell phone, or you can, if your parents give you permission to borrow theirs, what you can do is you can turn on the flashlight feature of your parent's cell phone. And what you want to do is you want to kind of imagine that the cell phone flashlight is like the sun. So if the sun was shining behind this guy, I'm now starting to see a shadow. If I get closer and closer, it completely changes the look of the shadow. If I back away with my flashlight, it also changes the position of the shadow, and it makes it get even longer. So what you want to kind of do is fuss around with it. You can kind of turn it around, and you want to kind of get it into a position where you can fit the shadow onto the piece of cardboard. This way, if you have the shadow, if you have the sun shining this way, your shadow is going to be cast behind. And that's a possibility too, if this guy was in this corner. So maybe we will try putting him over here like so, and move the sun around and get a little bit closer. So you can see how you can kind of experiment around. Once you find a shadow that you like where it actually fits on the cardboard, what I would suggest is have someone in your family, mom, dad, brother, or sister, to hold the light source for you, because it's really tricky to try to kind of trace and draw the shadow at the same time. So what I'm going to do here is, once you kind of play around with it, oopsie, I'm getting closer and the shadow's getting really, really big. So I'm kind of coming from behind and I'm going a little bit up, turning it more this way. You can even play around with your foil figure. And then once you get it how you like it, then that's when you will trace the outline of it. All right? So go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and do that because I need a little help too. And then I'll come back to you with the final step. All right, so this is a top view of what I was able to trace. So you can't really see the guy very well, but he's still here like this. And then here is the shadow that I was able to come up with while my daughter held my flashlight. So now what you can do is you can take either, if you have a crayon, great. If you have a black marker, that's easy to use. If you have colored pencil, you might say, Mrs. Herbay, I don't have anything to color with. That's okay. You can use your pencil. So after you trace the outline, you can then go ahead and color in the shadow. And let's say you didn't have a black marker, but you had a blue marker. That's okay too. So however you wish to color it in. A marker for this particular thing would probably be the fastest and the easiest. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carefully outline around. Now I've outlined it, so then I can color this in. I'm going to keep coloring this in, and once I have it colored in, I'll explain to you the final steps. Alright guys, so this is my final sculpture here. If you wanted to decorate the cardboard in any way, like let's say it was a baseball player throwing, throwing a ball or throwing a pitch, and you wanted to color the cardboard green or decorate this in any way, you can do that. But sometimes it's actually just really cool to have the shadow and the figure because there's a really good contrast between the two, so it looks kind of cool like this. In case you didn't have cardboard, like let's say your family does not eat cereal or crackers or whatever, I just wanted to show you, this was another example that I kind of had fun doing. This is another figure I did. His arms are kind of up and his leg is up. And so what I did for him is I took a whole sheet of paper and I folded it in half and I put glue on one side, and then I did it again. And then what I did was I did that once, and then I did it again. So I took another one and I sort of made like a glue sandwich. So I put glue all along the inside part of this, folded this together. Then this is a little bit thicker paper. Then I did the same to this paper, glue all around the outside, inside, glue sandwich. Then once I have these two, then I'm going to put fold side and fold side opposite one another, and I'm just going to put glue along here, 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 and all in the middle, and sandwich this together. And then what you get is this nice, you get a nice rectangle, and it's rather stiff, and then it allows you to glue your foil figure to it and do your fun shadow play. And on this one, I had just started to actually just color it in with pencil. And so I wanted to see, even if you don't have markers or crayons or color pencils, you can still do the project and it can still look really, really cool. And if you don't have tape, what you could do is you could just either ask your mom or your dad or maybe your brother or your sister to kind of hold the figure, and you guys can play around with the shadow. Or you can take the figure outside and play around with it and see if you can even just make some shadows on the driveway. You could take the figure out or on the concrete on the sidewalk, and then you could trace around the outside of your foil figure with chalk. So there's many ways that you can sort of choose to have fun with this lesson, but I really hope you enjoy checking out shadows and experimenting around with it, and also experimenting around with making figures in motion just with foil. So don't feel like the first time you try it, you're going to necessarily even get it perfectly. You might have to practice it, and we all know that practice makes perfect, and even Mrs. Herbay is learning about practice as I create these video lessons for you. So I cannot wait to see your foil figures. Feel free to share them with me. I would love to see them, and just keep making art, guys.